This is Olive, a baby Firetail finch who recently fledged and lived a very short life, but left behind an extraordinary story. Stay with me as I share one of the rarest things I have ever witnessed in my aviary. I'm Marzi and this is my outdoor aviary. Olive's story began long before he left the nest. Here is the mom building their nest. And here is dad sitting on eggs with paper towels they carried inside to keep their nest warm. A few days later, I started hearing tiny peeping sounds coming from the nest. I knew some of the babies had hatched and were probably already a few days old. When I finally peeked inside the nest, I could see 4 tiny chicks. Here you can see Olive, the white chick with the black beak, always sitting in the front.
There's no room.
Dad is feeding the babies now and mom follows him to help feed them too. There isn't much room inside the nest, so they often feed the chicks right by the entrance. By this point, the 2 gray siblings had already left the nest, leaving only Olive and 1 other chick inside. Mom could finally squeeze into the nest to feed them. You're seeing now. Olive, the one with the black beak, is still staying behind in the nest, while one of his siblings with the same white body color has already left, and mom is feeding her now. As the babies grew, the 2 gray siblings were the first to leave the nest and begin exploring the aviary. Olive was the last one to fledge. Even after leaving the nest, all 4 babies still return to the nest each evening to sleep together and spend their days following their parents around, begging for food. But Olive seemed weaker than the others, so I often caught him and brought him inside my shed room to sleep safely under the heating lamp. Here he decided to jump right onto my head. That was a funny moment. Here you can see both mom and dad feeding Olive, but this only continued for about 2 days after he left the nest. Here dad is feeding one of the siblings. It's fascinating to watch how finches feed their babies. They bring up food from their crop, twist their necks, and gently pass the food directly into the chick's mouth. Here Olive is hungry and asking his siblings for food. Dad gave him a quick feeding, but it clearly wasn't enough. He continued begging food from anyone sitting nearby. This is the last time I'm seeing mom feeding Olive. And here comes the unexpected moment that I'm so glad I captured. One of Olive's siblings is actually feeding him, even though that sibling is still being fed by the parents. This was only the 3rd day after all the babies had fledged, and I had never seen anything like this before. Normally, young finches depend on their parents for at least a week or longer after leaving the nest. How and why this happened remains a mystery to me. Here, mom is feeding another sibling while also working on a brand new nest. She was constantly busy bringing nesting materials inside. Once again, Olive is begging one of his siblings for food. Then he moves on to other birds. To my surprise, one of my male zebra finches started feeding Olive, and it didn't stop there. The zebra finch continued feeding Olive for more than a week, even though Olive still seemed weak. Here all the other siblings are eating seeds with their dad on the ground and learning how to feed themselves, while Olive still begging food from his foster parents, who would spend several minutes feeding him each time. Meanwhile, mom and dad finished building their new nest. By now, Olive looked miserable, and I decided to try feeding him myself. At first, he refused to open his mouth, but this time was different. Within 2 minutes, he drank all the liquid food I offered him. I mixed a small amount of bee pollen into water because bee pollen contains proteins, amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and natural nutrients that can help support growth and energy in young birds. And he seemed to like it. The next day, Olive appeared a little stronger, and I was hopeful. But the following day, he was still begging food from his foster parents. This was just a few hours before the sad ending. Olive sat calmly on my arm and then flew away. I thought he must be okay, but unfortunately I later found Olive dead. This was heartbreaking, but it wasn't the first time I had seen something like this. Many bird breeders have told me that when parent birds stop feeding a chick or reject it completely, there is often a reason that we cannot see. No matter how much extra care, warmth, or food we provide, many of these babies still do not survive. I've experienced this myself several times with rejected chicks. Perhaps the parents can sense an illness, a weakness, or something that humans cannot detect. The mystery remains. What I will always remember about Olive is not how this story ended, but the kindness shown to him along the way. A sibling fed him, a zebra finch adopted him, and for a short time, an entire aviary seemed to care about one tiny bird. Tiny Olive will always be remembered.